first, I want to thank a few people again, just not to get it out of the way, but just to signify again what everyone's done, from the volunteers to the film crew to you name it, families, for letting us go. To Congressman Gus from Pasco County, Florida. He's here with us tonight. I just want to say thank you for your support. Some congressmen do things, congressmen and women, they do get involved, and they're great representations of their county and their country, and that is definitely Congressman Gus. He's stood behind us from day one, so special thanks to him. I'm going to first introduce the moderator. A lot of you guys might know her, might not, but you definitely will tonight. She's been on the radio, 15 years in the business for media. She's a Coptic Christian. She first started with public radio, a public affairs program, which she hosted for Sirius XM on public radio. She also created and hosted a TV program for PBS focused on international affairs. Miss Mimi, I want you to come up. The second person, a lot of you guys know, the director of the film, Jordan. Jordan wrote, filmed, edited Christians in the Mirror, along with Patrick Carberry and Paul Giallo, right here on the front, along with associate producer, myself. Jordan also has a production company, Altum Productions. He has filmed documentaries all over the world, over 30 countries, with themes usually focused on international affairs and human rights. Jordan, why don't you come up? The third person I know a little bit about is my father, Patrick Carberry, executive producer, president and founder of Joshua Accord. That's our family's nonprofit that started about over 5 years ago. Retired intelligence supervisor for the FBI counterintelligence. Previously was an entrepreneur, business owner, president of a couple companies. Retired U.S. veteran, 82nd Airborne. I know he wants me to get that in there. Married with 2 beautiful children, me being one of them. And 1 troublemaking, lovely grandson and a dog. So Dad, why don't you come up here? Patrick Carberry, third person on our panel. Definitely a man that I got to meet a couple years ago. I call him Uncle Paul. But Paul Giallo, co-executive producer in this event, one of our biggest donors, president of Giallo Oil, and senior VP of Joshua Accord. Kind of weird doing a bio of myself, but as you see, I don't have a problem talking about myself. Let's see here. Prodigal son, that's evident. Marketing, creative director in a couple things. Background in international relations and government. Helped a little bit with this project. Associate producer credit, which thank you very much for that. Right now doing a little restaurant touring and maybe open mic comedy night, who knows. But Sean Carberry, nice to meet you guys.
يعني الأولاد عنا شافوا كل شيء، يعني عاشوا الحرب بكل تفاصيلها، عاشوا الخوف، عاشوا المعاناة، فيعني ما في داعي إنه نشرح لهم، صاروا هن شايفين كل شيء.
Thank you all for coming. I'm just going to start with a few questions to the panelists here, and then we'll open it up for your questions. So get your questions ready while we start. Jordan, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to ask a very fundamental question, which is, why do you think it's Christians that are being attacked in so many countries in such large numbers? Why is it happening to Christians?
I think there are a number of reasons for that. Oftentimes, it is because they're looked at as representing the West, because of course a lot of the countries in the West have are Christian or have a Christian tradition. And I think another thing we have to remember is that most Americans don't even realize, and I would put myself in that category for a long time, that there are large communities in places like some of the countries that we highlighted. And so I think they become more vulnerable when people don't know they exist. They're easy targets. And oftentimes they don't have any support. So we're not a perfect country, but we pride ourselves on the principle of treating people equally. Not, tribalism is not something that is seen as a positive thing here. And again, we're not perfect, but we talk about it and we strive to do better, to treat people fairly. But in other places in the world, that's not the reality. And oftentimes it comes down to religion. And so I often give this example of a Christian, for example, maybe in Geerges outside of Mosul, 2014, the summer of 2014. ISIS comes in, takes over. If you're a Christian, you look around you and you have Iran, you have Turkey, you have Syria, you have Saudi Arabia to the south. You don't have anybody who's going to stick up for you. And if you're a Sunni Muslim, who, a lot of them can be victims as well, or a Shia Muslim or a Kurd, you have militaries that are there to protect you. You can go to that area. You have, political parties that are very strong. So the Christians often look to the West and they say, well, Europe and the Americas, they might not prioritize us, but they're going to treat us with, they're going to help us in some way, whether it's the organizations or the governments. But oftentimes, because we do try to treat people equally, we don't want to be looked at here in the West as prioritizing Christians. So, for example, in 2017, I believe it was, this is not the United States, but where I was born, the UK, they allowed in 1,100 Syrian refugees that year. Not one of them was Christian, out of the 1,100. And as we saw...
Is that on purpose?
I think it's out of vanity and pride. And the Christians there then are the victims of that vanity and pride to say, look, we're not tribal. We're not going to help Christians. I mean, not one. You'd think they'd allow in a few. Obviously, all groups are being victimized, but Christians are right up on the list. And so I think we have to just keep that in mind, that a lot of places in the world don't have that. They're not striving for equality and justice and the things that we do here.
Jordan, on the film's website, it says this, quote, "The Christian faith persecuted in one region affects the universal church. Every Christian, by extension, is suffering it, realized or not." What do you mean?
Well, we're supposed to be united. We're supposed to stand in solidarity, and that's something that, Pat, who really had the idea from the beginning, has stressed. And one thing that we've tried to do, I worked on projects like Our Last Stand, where I met you for the first time, that focused on Christians in Iraq and Syria, is to try to, bring different denominations together. I mean, we want to bring all people of goodwill, different religions together as well. But it's great in India, and Pat and I were there together, that Pastor Nehemiah is a Pentecostal pastor, and he's talking. I went to a prayer, the prayer event with him, where you had hundreds of people, and you had a Franciscan, Catholic priest next to a Pentecostal praying together, and you wouldn't see that here. And so we're trying to unite people and to say, look, if we're not going to care as Christians, or just people who care about the vulnerable, then who is going to care? So it is our responsibility.
Pat, the idea for this film kind of started when you were overseas serving with the U.S. government. Tell us about how that started and what your idea was.
Well, I'm retired now, but I served over in Iraq in 2004 and Afghanistan in 2009, dealing with different intelligence matters, looking for any threats back to the U.S. Anyway, based on that experience coming back both times, it was kind of an awakening to me of seeing the atrocities firsthand and the target of Islamic extremism in those cases anyway. There's more ideologies out there, but those are the two specifically for Iraq and Afghanistan, of targeting Christians and other minorities just because they were Christians. And so I felt that we, meaning Americans, are out of touch with what is really going on. And when I start to do more scriptural searching, more praying about it, what really came to me, more of an epiphany, if you will, was that from a priority here in America of what churches are doing, we're doing good things. We should be helping the homeless. We should be helping widows and orphans. We should be doing a lot of the things we're doing. But the big C, to Jordan's point about pulling together everybody, meaning Christians. When Pastor Nehemiah was up there in India, one of the things that he said was, we had Pentecostals, we had Roman Catholics, we had evangelicals, Anglicans. They're targeting us not because of that, they're targeting us because we are Christians. It's very clear. I do not believe that we, as the Christian community in the United States, are doing enough for the Christians who are dying, being tortured, imprisoned. And I think that really was the genesis for this film. It was also on me as well. I'm also in that crowd. We shouldn't be as worried about our 401ks, or whether our lattes are hot or cold, whether we buy clothing for Fluffy to go out on Halloween, okay? Just an example. I love animals too. But over $500 million was spent last year for buying little Fluffy costumes for Halloween. Just an example, $500 million. So I do believe our priorities here in America and as a Christian church are out of whack. There is 111 New Testament scriptures about giving, caring, taking care of the poor, pastors, missionaries, etc. Of those 111 scriptures, 67 specifically, are talking about helping the brethren, helping those who are brothers and sisters in the Lord. When's the last time you heard from the pulpit preaching and teaching about how we need to help the persecuted church? You know? It's not the priority.
But why is that, Pat? Why do you think that is?
One of the reasons why we're here.
Because Americans are such caring people.
I think there's a lack of awareness, but I also think because it's over there, I think there could be a certain apathy, right? As you saw up here, different cultures, different languages, different ways of looking at their faith, different clothing, all those different things. The Christians over in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, by the way, want to stay there. They prefer to stay. It's their homeland, right? So if we think about missionaries, who are best served to be able to try to help us in the dream of spreading Christianity? It's not taking some good old boy from Tennessee, from Fuller Theological Seminary, with orange hair and green eyes and plopping them over there in the Middle East. It's helping those Christians over there who understand the culture, understand their Muslim neighbors, who speak the language. They're the ones we should be trying to help. So what I am saying is the church here in the U.S. is not doing enough. It's a wake-up call. We should be doing more, and we need to take action.
Many of believers, yeah, but they are still traumatized because what happened to them. The women, if she see her daughter to be raped, or men, he see her daughter to be raped in front of him.
اصلا احنا كنا خايفين كثير من عندهم لانه كانوا بس بيجوا يأذونا وكانوا كثير انه بياخذوا البنات انه بتعرفوا انتم بيروحوا ببيعوهم وبيتاجروا فيهم. فانه احنا كنا بخوف وما بنقدر نعمل شيء ولا حدا قدر يعمل لنا شيء.
Paul, I want to ask you about your recent trip. Your heritage is Syrian. You grew up in Lebanon, and you went back recently. Tell me about the people that you met and why you wanted to support this project in particular.
I mean, for a long, long time, going to Syria, tried to help my church and the people there. We donate so much money to help the people there. But beside the money, is people has no hope anymore there. Everyone asking me why we don't get help from the U.S. So somehow they blame the U.S. about what's going on in the Middle East. Sorry to say that, but they do
So
that.
they expect the
Yes.
American churches to be
Yes.
helping them, and they're wondering what's happening.
They do. I mean, even if you look in the 70s, when the civil war in Lebanon, I lived there when I was younger. And again, we was getting killed by the Muslim, and I'm sorry, I don't mean just the Muslim, and other people, but everyone that time asking why the U.S. is not helping us. And it's been like that for a long time, from the 70s, then the Syria war, and then when we're going there and talking to people there and seeing people and seeing the pain they have nothing. They don't have nothing. So wherever you donate and give them money and all that's nothing. So we tried to help too. We did help some family to bring them to the U.S. and thanks to Gospel Iraq, he helped us to bring a couple families here to the U.S. too. So we're doing so much to try to help the people there. So when me and Pat, we met and we talked about the film, I did not mind to donate any money to help him because I believe the film could really impact and could make, hopefully, difference, yes.
Well, I want to ask you both real quick. What do you want to see happen? Ideally, after somebody sees this film, what do you want them to do?
Well, I had my epiphany, right? The Lord spoke to my heart, and this is just one of the manifestations or products, if you will, thanks to Jordan and others who participated over almost 2 years to pull this together. And this is what the Lord has put on me, using me and my gifts, if you will, using Jordan's gifts to help produce this and direct it and edit it, using Paul's gifts and his knowledge and his background, and Sean, and I can go on. So we are doing our part, is what I'm saying, all right? Everyone here has a part to play in the body of Christ. We're all one body. And when one part suffers, the other part should feel it. Hopefully this film is going to make you feel it. And if it doesn't tug at your heartstrings, make sure you got a pulse. Okay? Because it should. So you need to figure out, it's not a checkoff list of what you believe God would want you to do to help the persecuted church. Now, we're not making any money off of this. Any money we make goes over there to many of them that you see on here. We've vetted them. We know where the money goes and who gets it and all that stuff, okay? And because of who I used to work for, I'm very concerned about that, right? Trust me. So you need to think about, pray about how you can help the persecuted church within your community, within your church. Now, we can help by trying to match up, partner up with churches over there, with your church perhaps, to adopt them, if you will. There's so many needs over there that's going on. So that's my answer.
Finally, Sean, before we open it up to the audience, you have a story you want to tell about how you got involved in this film.
Yeah, it's just to build off a little bit of what Jordan, my dad, and Paul said about me and what Mimi, what you asked. A quick aside. It's kind of international relations and government. There's a term, NIMBY, not in my backyard, where if something happened right now, we're in DC, a couple blocks away, people are going to get involved, they're going to be off-put, there's going to be tears, there's going to be money flowing in. The further you put that away from everyone, the less people care. So when we're in the U.S. and something happens in Tennessee, or there's a flood, or in Florida, or Hurricane Katrina, people give and give and give. When it's across the pond, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, that's horrible. I hope they get help. Because it's not in your backyard. And it's not tangible. So one of the things that my dad, Jordan, and Paul and I, we have to make it tangible. It has to tug. You have to be like, why would I get involved? It's somebody thousands of miles away. And it's easy to say, well, we're one body, one suffer, everyone suffers. But there has to be, where Christians in the Mirror came around, a mirror has to come up and be like, am I doing enough? Can I do more? So that's a little bit of an aside. To answer your question, my dad, I was visiting them in Tampa, and my dad's, God talked to me and really put something on my heart. And I was like, okay, what's up, Dad? And literally, like, God chatted with you. What did he say? Like, okay, what's going on? And he said, no, I'm called to the persecuted church. And I was like, never been. Like, what channel? Who's the pastor? Persecuted church? No clue. So he explained it, and we had a very long talks about it. And he was very passionate, if you can't tell, we're a very passionate family, about he didn't want anyone involved in the project that didn't have a heart for it or really wanted to get involved. And me being me and the prodigal son writer, I was like, well, I don't know if you're going to get a lot of people involved that already don't know it. And of course I'm in, and I'm your son. And he's like, no, I really want you to be involved, and I really want you to care. And long story short, went over to South Sudan with Jordan to interview a bunch of people and ask questions. And it really kind of stuck home when I was traveling back. And anyone that's been to Sudan or any countries, they have little puddle jumpers, which are little planes. And you're in for it when I walk onto the plane and everyone's like, I'm doing the math real quick. You sit on that side. The luggage is over here. That type of plane. And then an NGO, a nice doctor that was working over there, kind of asked, I kind of stick out in the South Sudan a little bit. So she asked, she's like, what are you doing here? And I told her what the project is, what we're doing. She's like, how'd you get involved in that? And I said, well, my dad really had it on his heart to get this involved. How do you come up with it? And I said, well, his father called him to do it. And I said, and she's like, yeah, but why are you involved? And I'm like, because my father wanted me to do it. It's not the same. I don't have that. I'm very spiritual. I love God. But my dad has a very strong connection with his faith. I have a very strong connection with my dad. So it really struck home at 2 o'clock in the morning on the plane ride. I made a doctor cry, she's seen some horrible stuff. But it is. My dad's father called him, and he did it for his father. I did it for my father. It's not that big of a deal for me to jump to the Sudan to say, okay, Dad's like, who wants to go? I'm like, let's do it. Where the nurse was very funny. She started to cry, the doctor, and she goes, I can't even get my kids to go to the grocery store. And I was like, well, it's a little bit different, but it's, I just thought it was a poignant question just because Father's Day is coming around. And we all need to we all think we do enough, and some people might. Someone's $10 might be like someone's $100,000. But we can always do more when it comes to calling, emailing, getting our congressmen involved, asking people for help, having our church show the film real quick, then we're going to open it up. We'd love it if this was streaming on Netflix or Hulu, and everyone here in everyone's church and everyone spread the word, where everyone watched it on one day at one time. Imagine how many Christians and the power you have to say, all right, it's showing on Amazon and the International Day of Prayer is here, and we're all going to tune in and watch it on that day. That's going to make it trend. And everyone who knows, Netflix and Amazon, it's going to trend to the top, and it's going to be the #1 documentary. And then secular society and everyone else is going to have to talk about it. And then it's going to bring the subject to the forefront, which is really what we want. We want people to talk about the persecuted church, what it means to our brothers and sisters overseas and here, the suffering, and why aren't we doing enough? It's a hard thing to say, am I doing enough? I probably could do more. And then to do more. You all are doing more. You're here on a Monday night, 9-something at night. You're here in a beautiful, cramped auditorium to listen to us, to try to get more involved, and we thank you for it. But now it's time to get your churches and neighborhoods and everyone involved.
As American Christians, we enjoy freedom of religion, prosperity, and opportunity, while our brothers and sisters in Christ around the world face marginalization, persecution, and genocide. From Syria, Iraq, and Egypt to Sudan and India. Since the time of Christ, his followers in every corner of the earth have taken up the cross, bravely persevering and boldly proclaiming the good news of the gospel. And while they endure, we, living in freedom and affluence, have been given a responsibility. To whom much is given, much is expected.
I'm going to switch seats and go to the crowd.
Yes.
But I'm going to ask Gus, Congressman, to take my seat. I know it's a big seat to fill, but I'd love you to come on up here. Gus has done a lot, and I want him part of the panel. Thank you very much, sir. You're very welcome. I know the first one's always the hardest. Don't be shy, anybody. Right, what you got? Right here? All right, there we go. Here you go, Miss Rachel.
Okay, so I grew up understanding about the persecuted church. It was the Soviet Union at the time, Brother Andrew, Voice of the Martyrs, and all that. Over the years, I continue to support financially various groups and talk to people. And if they look at you, if they listen like you have three heads. But there is a real difficulty trying to get involved outside of just giving money. I have contacted, I cannot tell you how many groups, and I keep getting, well, we need money, or you can talk to somebody, or you're on Facebook. That's all great, but it isn't, there's more that I feel like that I could do personally, and I'm just wondering, how do you get more involved? You're looking at somebody, for instance, are there refugee groups here that I could help teach or get assimilated? Or is there someone I can connect with overseas, go overseas? What can I do other than just give money?
I often tell people a good idea is to, especially if you're in a city or close to a city, Google a Coptic Orthodox church, a Syriac Orthodox church, or there's a lot of churches, there's a lot of Nigerian, churches that are maybe evangelical or Roman Catholic, they have a lot of Nigerians there, and go and ask them. You could have a film screening and make it very ecumenical, or bring in a lot of different groups, because I think even going to those churches, and Paul, you would know, and Mimi as well, it means a lot, even if you didn't do anything. Even going and saying, you know what, we heard about what was going on to, what was happening to Coptic Orthodox Christians in Egypt, and we want to know more. And we have refugees, we have victims, we have people with stories that go back generations, and I think that would go a long way. I'm sure your communities would appreciate even that effort, a very small effort like that.
Next question, hands raised, anyone? Sorry, I'm creeping up. Here you go. Mary Pam.
Hi, it was really moving to hear from the young man who was sharing about his dreams of wanting to travel, but said he wasn't going to leave Syria during the war. And I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more about him and his organization. How is he doing?
He's doing well. I was taking some photos of him on the big screen. We hear a lot about the negatives of social media, but this is one of the positives, that we can keep a lot of the people that we met with up to date on the progress of the film. And when I met him, I actually met him in Damascus, but he's from Aleppo, and so we went there, and I felt like he was an ideal person, because he's sort of the everyman. He's a young guy, very articulate, funny, charming, very likable. But he wasn't part of the military. He didn't have, his stories were something that I think almost anybody could connect with, in a way, because it would happen to almost anybody. You're trying to live your life. You're going to university. You have your family. And so the more I spent time with him, the more I realized this is somebody who could connect with, my friends, could connect with the West. He talked a lot about that, about the music he liked and about the places he wanted to go. And oftentimes, I think, if you don't know that part of the world, you think, the people are very different. In a lot of ways, people are different, but there are a lot of things that connect us too. And somebody like him, somebody like Antoine, is somebody that I could see as one of my friends here. And again, that makes it more than just a number or a faceless person. It's like, wow, that's somebody I got to know in 10 minutes, and feel like I'm friends with him. And we would encourage people too, if they're interested in reaching out to these individuals and their organizations, they can get a hold of us on social media, Facebook, and our website, because even a word, even a word of encouragement, and I've known that through social media, it means a lot to them. Even if you can't give money or do much more than that, something small can go a long way.
Aleppo looks horrible. Has the government started to rebuild? Is there any, it looks like, it's obviously a war zone, but how are people living like that?
Well, as Paul knows, I wanted to go there a year before I was there, when it was the middle of the Civil War, when fighting was going on in the Battle of Aleppo. But it was, a lot better, as Antoine said. But people are rebuilding, and there's a lot more hope. Even when I was there over a year ago, and I'm sure now it's the momentum is building. So people see the end. They see a better future, which is good. But
not yet. Nothing happened yet. But maybe they clean up here and there, but nothing to build yet. But even in Damascus right now, nothing happened to Like Syria stays the way is it now. It's more safer now, but nothing happened. Nothing. I just want to say one thing. We're not about the money. We love to pay and help. We're not ever thinking about the money. When we love God, we love to give. That's what we do. We donate to make the film. We help people everywhere in the Middle East. We're not about the money at all. We want you just to help us. To be honest with you, Gazbel Arrakis maybe is the best guy, the best politician we have. Every time we go to D.C. and talk to politicians there, somehow some of them are scared even to talk about it. When I ask them why we don't get help, a lot of them say, Paul, keep talking about it and come and talk. But they don't want to do anything about it because they worry about someone else higher up there to stop them. So we need your help here to push your politician to do something about it. Believe me, the war could stop and we could make a difference, save these people. We don't need to donate. It's not about the money, just go give money. This money is there to give. But we need your help so we could stop the mess there in Syria and in Iraq and other places. And the politician could do it. You know what I mean? You could give all the millions of dollars to people, but it's not going to help. The politician could stop it.
Congressman, do you want to talk a little bit about that and what Congress is doing and what the initiatives you've been taking?
Well, I feel that, when we do have these caucuses, and I'm the co-chair of the International Religious Freedom Caucus, and there are members who join it. However, Paul's right. We could do more. And I don't know whether some of the members of Congress resist because they feel like, we're putting one religion over the other, political correctness, what have you. That could be it. But they need to, the people in the community also need to speak up and let the members of Congress know that this is a priority. They care about these people, these wonderful Christians. Like you said, we're one body of Christ around the world. Now, I'm Greek Orthodox Christian, so I can identify with a lot of the Orthodox Syriac and Coptic Christians. But I want to help everybody. Right now, we should say a prayer for the folks in Sudan. Not necessarily South Sudan, but right now al-Bashar was overthrown after 30 years by the military. But what's happening is there are some people in the military the leaders that are corrupt, and they're killing Christians, Muslims, other religious minorities now, just for speaking up, just for peacefully assembling and talking about these things. I went to Sudan recently, and I visited detainees that were just attended rallies, and they were rounded up, and they're in jail now. We got a few released, Sudanese, but some Americans as well. But what Pat says is so true, and I'm going to repeat it again. We're one body of Christ, so it really shouldn't matter what denomination we are. We need to help these people, and the pastors, the priests, they need to speak out, because I think that us Americans, we have big hearts, and I think if we were educated on these particular issues and what's going on over there. The media can have a role as well, and a very powerful role. We don't see enough of that in the mainstream media, but they could have a real powerful role in getting the message out. But the pastors, everyone, they need to speak out. Everyone has a role to play to help our fellow Christians. I'm only in Congress for a certain amount of time, and there are some real leaders, heroes, more qualified than I am in Congress to speak out. The Frank Wolfs of the world, and he retired, Chris Smith, Jeff Fortenberry, and others that have been speaking out and helping Christians in the Middle East. The Coptic Jeff is a hero in Egypt, supporting the Coptic Christians. But we need more members to speak up, and it'd be great if we could get a tweet out of the president too. You'd be surprised, over in the Middle East, you'd be surprised how that resonates, because we are the most powerful country in the world. So thank you, Pat. You're incredible. You're a gift from God. And this guy here has always been a wonderful friend, and he's very successful financially. He's living the American dream, but he has not forgotten his brothers and sisters back home. And I give him so much credit for that. God bless all of you. Thank you.
We got one more. What's your name, sir? Peter. Peter?
Can I say something before you ask? One thing as a takeaway that I'd recommend, because I know part of it was, and Mimi asked this question, what can we do? And a lady out there asked the same thing. So I'm all about not just talk, but action, right? So if I come across gruff, sorry. But here's what you can do as a takeaway. When you go back to church, ask your priest, your minister, okay, on that Sunday, or whenever you go, to integrate into the prayer, to pray for the persecuted church. That's very simple action you can do. Is he going to say no? Right? Okay. That's number one. Just ask. Be bold. Ask that question. And to ask him to continue to do that so we can start getting prayers going. And then second, I would say, ask the committee or the minister if there can possibly be a screening of this documentary. So those are two things that you could do.
The Bible says we are one body. If there's any part of us is hurt, all the body, it will to feel the problems and the challenges. But these days, we forget each other. We are not praying for each other. We are not standing with each other.
الشعب كتير عن جد بحاجة لمساعدات، بحاجة لدعم، بحاجة إنه لا أي دعم، إن كان دعم مادي، دعم معنوي.
मेरा विश्वास जब मेरे साथ ये हो रहा था, तो मेरा विश्वास परमेश्वर के ऊपर अटूट था कि प्रभु मरूंगा तो तेरे लिए, जीवन तेरे लिए। अगर तुम अपने आश्चर्य कर्म दिखाना चाहते तो मुझे सुबह तक इसका निर्णय मिलना चाहिए, क्योंकि मैंने ऐसा कोई पाप नहीं किया।
We lost everything, but we have God. God is everything for us now.
Congressman, I want to thank you for your work on this issue, and I know you've taken a special interest in Turkey and some religious freedom issues that churches faced in Turkey. And I believe you had the opportunity to be there recently, and I was just curious to know sort of in your communications as you work with kind of foreign governments in your position, how do you sort of try and use the voice and the platform that you have coming from the United States to sort of influence policies abroad to improve the status for Christian communities?
Well, yeah, we just got back from Turkey as well. And by the way, the new Archbishop, Greek Orthodox Archbishop, is fantastic. He's going to be the enthronement ceremonies on the 22nd. Paul, you might want to come with me. He's from the old world. His English is perfect. And he's a great communicator and a wonderful, humble person. Elpifloforos is his name. You'll hear that. And he's 52 years old, so he's going to be able to identify with a lot of the young people. But being from the old world, he was persecuted himself. And there's a seminary over there, just like there's a seminary in Turkey on the other side for the Syriac Orthodox Christians. But there's a seminary over there that has been closed since 1971. Since 1971. And that's because they're trying to get rid of all the Christians. We only have 2,500 left in Turkey, I understand, as it is. And there were, in the 60s, there were at least 500,000. But in any case, the seminary has been closed since 71. The government shut it down. You know, my understanding is that in order to qualify to be the patriarch, because our patriarch is in Constantinople, in order to qualify as a candidate to be a patriarch, you have to have gone to that seminary. You see what I mean? And it's all ready to open up. It's beautiful. It looks like paradise. So it's just a constant struggle, and I like to speak out not only on behalf of my denomination, but all Christians around the world. And we talk to leaders. We talk to government leaders and try to convince them. Now today, this is very unusual and remarkable, but we passed a joint resolution. You talked about Turkey. We passed a joint resolution in the Congress basically saying, look, the relationship between Turkey and the United States has deteriorated. You're a NATO ally, and you need to step up. So you're either with us, the U.S. and NATO, or you're with some of these bad actors. So lobbyists have a lot of power up here, as you know, but members of Congress have to step up and be courageous and do the right thing.
John Dow is a personal friend. My wife and I went to seminary with him, so I'm really familiar with the Good Shepherds Association. I don't know about the other folks that you all interviewed. I don't know if they have foundations here or support networks. But I wanted to say that when people were asking about what can you do, I know, like, I send stuff to John. There was a brief clip of a cross hanging on the back of somebody's shirt. I know where that came from. It came from Cambridge, Maryland. I can't get them anymore because the guy passed away. And we pray for John. I mean, I have a personal relationship with John and about another half a dozen Lost Boys. And I think the personal relationship, I want to say, would you all get to know some of these folks? And I know, like I said, Good Shepherds Foundation or Association is represented here, but the other folks, do they have support networks here in the States? So that, and if they do, how can we find out about them so that we can start to engage and build relationships with those guys in the Middle East that you all have so beautifully told their stories?
So this isn't really a question. Thank you, Pat and Jordan. I work with Pat and Jordan. I'm Dee Dee Lageson with Save the Persecuted Christians. We are a coalition of organizations like Joshua Cord, like In Altum, that are concerned that Americans don't know about the anti-Christian violence that is on the rise in countries all over the world right now. What was reported in the film was 215 million Christians facing heavy persecution. Every day they wake up, they face torture, death, discrimination, marginalization, the loss of life, loss of their children. There's so much that they're facing, and that number this year has gone up to 245 million according to Open Doors, and Aid to the Church in Need has it at 327 million. So Save the Persecuted Christians is that movement of groups that are providing symptomatic relief to the persecuted Christians all over the world, but we've all combined together to really bring the news of anti-Christian violence to Americans with partnering with Christians in the Mirror and our People of the Cross exhibit that you saw some of the banners out in the lobby as you were coming in. We are creating a new banner this year for the U.S. Ministerial called Warfare on Women. And these kinds of informational opportunities are available to come to your place in your location across the United States. But not only that, we come to Washington, D.C. to engage our members of Congress, our senators, members of the administration. Tomorrow, we have brought a delegation of Nigerians to the United States at Heritage Foundation tomorrow at 4 p.m. You will be able to hear from Rebecca Sharibu, whose daughter Leah was kidnapped last year by Boko Haram and is held as a slave for life. And I ask you to come and listen to her story. Listen to two Adara daughters from the Adara chiefdom. Their chiefdom was fully brutalized this year from February 10th through April 8th by Fulani militias that massacred close to 300 women, children, and elderly. So I ask you to come and listen to their stories. And go to ChristianPersecutionNews.com. It's a news aggregator that we've started so we can tell these stories and that you can know about it. You can go there and follow the news. It's all brought together there for you. But one person can have an impact. Tell your neighbor, tell your pastor, tell your congressman. Make sure that they know that this is important to you. Write letters, and write letters of encouragement to those who are suffering. That's the most important thing, that they know that you care. It lifts up their hope, and it enables them to continue on in the faith that we all care so much about.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. I'm going to answer, I guess, Dudley's question real quick that everyone usually has. What can we do? Can we do more? Where can we go? It's great that you're here. How can we get more involved? We are working on that as we speak. You can always email us, either Facebook, Instagram, Joshua Cord. What we're trying to do is partner up. Our long-term goal is to partner up. So that way, let's say the McLean Bible Church is right here and they have access to a church in Afghanistan. Maybe we can help them, either help them where they are or bring them over, and then McLean Bible then kind of helps them get assimilated into the community, from doctors to dentists to classes. That's kind of the long-term goal, is to have different offices in different countries to help people. In the short term, if you want to know how you get involved, how you do more, a young lady said, I get money all the time, but I want to do more. You contact groups like us, and we'll put you in contact with people or get you to volunteer, get you to be an ambassador to Joshua Cord or Save the Persecuted Christians. Whatever fits best for you, we want to help you and activate you to get out into the community and do more. Tonight, we want to thank everyone for coming, the entire panel, from Mimi to Jordan to my dad to Paul to the congressman to myself. We really appreciate you guys coming in. We appreciate you spending your time. Please tell your churches, your small groups, your large groups that we're here, what we're doing, that you'd love to have a screening or have a panel at your church or a place of work. We have red donation buckets in the front. There's one in the back, and then there's one right when you go out. The other thing I'll say is, you guys might notice it, you might not, you definitely will when you go out. We have our persecuted but not forgotten flag. It's sitting in the back that we put there. Basically, everyone knows when they lose a military family member, there's a flag or dinner. It's not set for them because they're never coming back, so no one sits in that seat. What we want is, as she's bringing down this flag right here, I had it in the back for a reason, but the easiest way that you can do it is at your church or small group. You have that flag, ask us, order it, we'll send it to you. You put it in a seat at your church. That flag represents hanging over a chair for the people. We're very privileged in the U.S. to go to church, not go to church, to have a latte when we go to church, to listen to some great music. We're very blessed to do that. In other countries, they get killed for believing in what we believe. They get tortured, they get raped, they get put to slavery, and more horrible things. So we put that on a chair for the people that can't come to church, the people that aren't as fortunate as us. So we try to save a seat for them. So that's an easy way for you to get involved. And you go to your church, and what you do, you order it, put it there, and people are going to be like, what's that? Right away, people are going to take pictures. They're going to start asking about it. Kind of hashtag empty seat. We want to fill those seats, not only here in other countries. We want to spread the word. Christian, Catholic, non-denominational, Orthodox, we're all one body. That's kind of what we have. If you look at the panel here, it's a broad spectrum of Christianity. All right? We want to get it across that we're Christian. We're not going to be broken apart into pieces because we're not strong. All together we are. So therefore, we're going to come together and help as many people as we can. From the panel, all of us want to say thank you.
Beyond denominations, across ethnicities, races, and nationalities, Christ unites us through the power of faith, the same faith that should inspire us to help those suffering from persecution.
أنا مسيحية.
ورد كرسي
أنا يونس ورايا مشيحايا.
और मैं एक भारतीय मसीह हूँ.
أنا مسيحية.
Christians in the Mirror, a documentary about the courage and sacrifice of Christians around the world and the need to stand in solidarity with them.